Hey guys, so it's Sammy here. I'll give you guys just a couple minutes and just see if anybody pops in. I wanted to talk to you guys today just about 3 of the top signs and symptoms that I think that people are having if they're finding that they're putting in a lot of effort and not seeing any results in regards to goals like weight loss. So here's the thing. When you're someone who's driven, someone who works hard, you give 100% to everything you do, you want to see the results for what you're looking for. And if that's weight loss, and a lot of people it is, it can be extremely frustrating when you don't see the results that you want, when you've been putting in so much effort and so much time into your fitness and nutrition. So I just wanted to talk about like maybe one of my clients, just giving you an example. So she was doing all of the right things. She was, and I say right things, because the problem is that, she wasn't seeing the results. And so obviously they weren't the right things for her at that time. But just an example, she was using a program for her nutrition. She was working out regularly and she still couldn't lose the weight that she wanted to lose. And even more than that, she was dealing with more symptoms than just weight loss issues. She was dealing with fatigue. She was dealing with brain fog. She was dealing with, joint aches and pains, all of that stuff. So the problem is that neither of the programs that she was using, because she was using something for nutrition, she was, going to some classes and really enjoying them, but they weren't customized for her to her health issues. And so that's the problem is that if you don't have a customized program that fits exactly what you're going through and what issues that you're having, then you may not see the results that you want to see. So when we finally started working together and we finally started seeing the inflammation in her system begin to reduce, she began to lose the weight that she wanted to. And she saw a decrease in the symptoms that she had, like bloating, the brain fog, and the fatigue as well. So what I want to talk about today is those top 3 signs and symptoms that I have a tendency to see with my clients when they come to me that may point towards inflammation being the main issue of why you're not losing the weight that you want to lose. So let's just talk through those top 3 right now. Bloating. You could call it water retention, but I would definitely call it bloating. Joint aches and pains, and then fatigue. Those are the top 3 symptoms that I find people come to me with. And so what I want to do is I want to talk through not just those, but what could be the cause of those signs and symptoms, because all of them have a root issue, right? So there's lots more signs and symptoms of inflammation, but I just want to focus today on these 3 and how those can be a hindrance, or why they may be a hindrance to your weight loss. So let's just break those down. So bloating or increased water retention, some of those causes. So number 1, and I would say definitely number 1, diets high in processed foods, sodiums and sugars. Those things can cause bloating and water retention, not to mention the damage that those can cause to the gut. I think we're finding more and more, and science is definitely backing it as they really dig in and look more at the foods that we, especially as American society, the foods that we put in our system on a regular basis. So many of those are highly processed and they're convenience foods, and they have things in them that our bodies are just not meant to handle. And so the issue is that those foods, because our body is trying to figure out what to do with those things, essentially, can cause bloating because the digestive tract is not happy with them, first of all. But then, it can cause damage to the gut as you're putting foods in that shouldn't necessarily be in your system. So number two, dehydration. So not drinking enough water, that can actually lead to dehydration, which can cause bloating and water retention. Funny as it seems, you would think that less water, you wouldn't have as much, water in your system, and so you wouldn't be bloated. But it can actually have the reverse effect. And the other issue too is that when the body is in a dehydrated state for too long, that can cause inflammation in your system, in your body. So example of that, I have a client who, one of the issues that he dealt with when, one of not that he dealt with when he was coming in, he was dealing with some fatigue, some major fatigue. And so when you get to the root issue of why that all began, one of the reasons we think that began was because he had some severe dehydration earlier in his life, when he was playing sports on a regular basis, and he was not drinking enough and not staying hydrated, and that continued on into later in his life. And so the damage that can cause to the gut is substantial. And so staying hydrated, staying well hydrated, is definitely an important thing. It's important for our health in a lot of different ways. But just know that dehydration can actually cause bloating and can cause more inflammation in your system. So next thing I would say is medications. So certain types of medications that seem to be pretty prevalent, cortisone, prednisone, anti-inflammatories, antidepressants, those are all medications that can cause bloating and water retention. But the thing is that many medications can also cause damage to our system, which can cause inflammation and further health challenges. And so as those present, the issue is that the more health challenges that you're facing, the more likely you are to not be able to reach goals like weight loss, like feeling better, having that optimal health. So another cause of bloating could be digestive disorders, like IBS and IBD. These things can cause bloating. They can cause water retention. And, I can say from my own personal experience that IBS, bloating, was definitely one of the main symptoms that I dealt with and struggled with for a long time. Super frustrating because you just never know when it's going to show up. And it can be one of those things that you go from feeling great in the morning to by afternoon, you feel like you look like you're pregnant. So that can definitely be a frustrating thing. And no matter what you do, you just don't feel like you look the way that you want to look because you're always a little bloated. Not to mention just the discomfort of dealing with those digestive disorders. Another issue that can cause the bloating, food sensitivities. Those can cause bloating. They can cause water retention as well. But let's just talk about the bloating that food sensitivities cause. When your body is reacting to foods that you are putting in, and it is sensitive to, you have not necessarily an allergy to it, but you have a sensitivity reaction to it, that can cause bloating as your body basically fights to remove what it recognizes as toxins from your system. So the bloating can happen with that. The problem with food sensitivities is if you have something like leaky gut, is that the food sensitivities will continue to increase until you have healed the leaky gut, until you have dealt with that. So it's very important to know that, like with leaky gut, if you're finding that your food sensitivities continue to increase and you find that you're not allergic, but sensitive to more and more foods, leaky gut is most likely the underlying symptom there, the underlying root problem. So another issue is liver and kidney issues. So if your liver and kidney are not functioning at full capacity, this can cause bloating and retention. Those organs, they do a lot of hard work, and if they are not functioning to full capacity, it can cause a lot of other health issues, not just the bloating. It can cause fatigue. It can cause, joint aches and pains as your body's not, it's not processing the foods and the nutrients the way that it needs to. So liver and kidney issues definitely could be an issue for the bloating. Sedentary lifestyle and lack of physical activity. So any prolonged sitting or even standing, that can hinder blood circulation, and that can contribute to some bloating, some water retention, fluid buildup. So definitely important to be staying active, even if that's just, if you have a desk job, to be up, to be moving around a little bit more throughout the day. Definitely an important thing to do. Hormonal imbalances, that can be another issue when it comes to bloating. So as hormones fluctuate, and for women, we know that as those fluctuate, it is normal for some water retention and bloating to happen, during that PMS time frame. But for men and women, when hormones are out of balance, bloating and water retention, it just can become a more regular occurrence. And nobody really likes to be bloated. You don't like to feel that way. You want your clothes to fit well. You don't want to feel like you look all puffy and bloated all the time. So it's definitely something to be making sure that hormones are in balance, and that you may need to get tested to figure that out. Number 9, last one for this one, is chronic inflammation. So chronic inflammation, a lot of different forms. Systemic inflammation that's often linked to things like arthritis or autoimmune disorders or chronic infections. So like for myself, I dealt with chronic inflammation in the respect of having a systemic bacterial infection. And so that created a lot of other health issues like leaky gut and IBS and SIBO. Those were things that I dealt with. Bloating made it difficult to look and feel the way that I wanted to feel. So chronic inflammation can have a lot of negative impacts on your health, but it can definitely be something that causes you to not be able to lose the weight that you want to lose. So let's move on to the next one. So joint aches and pains. Joint aches and pains, they can have various causes, but you're going to see that as we talk this through, that most of them in some way are linked to some level of inflammation. Joint pain can also, if you think about it, lead to a decreased desire and motivation to exercise, and increased use of anti-inflammatory medications or prescription pain medications. And this in turn, it's just a domino effect. It can lead to decreased energy expenditure and increased inflammation in the body, which then you'll find if the less energy that you're expending, the less likely you are to be able to lose the weight that you want to lose. So some of the causes for joint aches and pains, and there's a lot of different causes, but so number 1, arthritis is the most common cause of joint pain, including conditions like osteoarthritis, which is an excess wear and tear on the joints and the rheumatoid, and then there's rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disorder. But all of them are linked to some level of inflammation. So second would be infections. Joint pain can occur as a result of bacterial or viral infections, such as Lyme and SIBO. So if you're not familiar with things like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, what can happen is when it's left untreated. And a lot of times it's left untreated because people don't realize at first that that's what's going on with them. And so if it's left untreated, what happens is that bacteria can spread throughout your system. There's other times when, say, you get something like strep. and you're treated with an antibiotic, which doesn't fully get the bacteria in your system, it leaves bacteria. And so that bacteria can actually get into to areas like cartilage and joints and, kind of build itself up on nerves. But it gets into weak areas and it kind of makes its home. And so you end up with, with a bacterial infection as that continues to grow and build and feed on the foods that you're feeding it and things that it likes. And that when it's left untreated can continue to just get worse and cause more health infections, not infections, but health problems, challenges. Being overweight can cause joint aches and pains. So if you're carrying excess weight, that can put excess strain on your joints, leading to pain, which can also lead to inflammation, and also in turn, that domino effect, lower the desire and the motivation to exercise, which would actually help you. Autoimmune disorders, conditions like lupus, fibromyalgia, rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, and many more. These can cause inflammation, which affects the joints and causes pain and stiffness. Gout is another one. It's a type of arthritis that has been caused by a buildup of uric acid crystals in the joints, leading to severe pain and stiffness. And tendonitis and bursitis, those are some other causes of joint aches and pains. Both are caused by inflammation and cause joint pain. So they can be sometimes attributed to an injury, but if you're experiencing either chronically, you are likely dealing with chronic inflammation. So fatigue is the last one I want to go over. Inflammation can cause fatigue and exhaustion, which makes it difficult to stick to a healthy diet and exercise regimen. So this can lead to a decrease in energy expenditure and slow the weight loss progress. So causes of this would be inflammatory conditions like chronic inflammatory conditions like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and et cetera. Those things can cause persistent fatigue due to the body's immune system, the body's immune response to that inflammatory condition, because it's just constantly working. It's constantly on high alert. Number two would be chronic fatigue syndrome. So this is a complex condition. It's characterized by severe fatigue that's not improved by rest and lasts for longer than 6 months. And many times inflammation is at the root of the cause for this. Sleep disorders. Sleep disorders, as you know, if you're dealing with a sleep disorder, sleep apnea, insomnia, or other sleep disorders, it can lead to poor sleep quality and chronic fatigue, which is no fun. It makes it really hard for you to not only function on a daily basis, but it also makes it hard for you to reach weight loss goals because you don't have the energy to put into your fitness and exercise. There's also anemia, thyroid disorders, adrenal fatigue. I want to definitely touch base on that adrenal fatigue. A lot of people who are business executives, CEOs, business owners, you are on high alert on a regular basis. And the adrenal glands are constantly overworked. And so they get to the point where they're fatigued and they are unable to produce enough cortisol, which then results in fatigue and other health issues. So it's definitely something to address there. I think a lot of people deal with adrenal fatigue and don't realize it. They just think I'm tired. I'm overworked, when in actuality, the adrenals need some support. So poor diet and nutrient deficiencies. We talked about poor diet earlier. This can affect your energy level. It can definitely cause some fatigue. So you definitely want to be making sure that eating clean, whole foods like lean meats and fruits and vegetables instead of the highly processed foods, the convenience foods, those easy to pick up stuff from the store. You want to try to put a little more energy into your food so that it puts a little more energy into you. So lifestyle factors can also be a huge thing. Sedentary lifestyle, lack of physical activity, those things can actually cause fatigue. Most people would think that just sitting all day would be be fine, but your body's not made to sit all day. And so it can actually have a negative impact on you. Excess alcohol consumption, poor sleep habits, all of those things can contribute to fatigue. So I think the thing that I find is far too often people are eating a low calorie or low carb diet. They're pushing it hard at the gym, putting in a ton of effort and not seeing much change. So if this is you and you've been dealing with any of these symptoms, it may be time to rethink your approach. If any of this has resonated with you and you want some help with tackling the inflammation in your system, just message me, coach. We can set up a time to talk, just to talk about what you've been dealing with. And we can just see if maybe my approach would be a good fit for you. So thanks for joining me today. I will hopefully talk to you soon.